So most Roblox games that get made never get a single real player, and that's not because the idea was bad and it's not because the game was ugly, but it's actually because there's an actual framework that separates the games that hit the algorithm from the ones that just die silently. And I'm gonna break that whole framework down and run it against one of my actual games, which is called Steal a Superstar. I don't believe I've talked about this game on the channel before, and I'm gonna be showing you guys the real numbers, the real dashboard, so you can see exactly what hitting these benchmarks or missing them actually looks like. Real quick, this is Steal a Superstar. You steal rare superstar characters, you upgrade your base, you rebirth for bigger multipliers. There's 35 plus characters, 7 rarity tiers, the whole thing. It's been live for about 2 months now, I believe, and it peaked at 3,000 concurrent players. It's sitting at 1.4 million total visits, so this is a genuinely successful game in my eyes. But the reason that it worked isn't luck, but it's because it hit specific benchmarks that most games never touch, so let's go ahead and go through them. Now, for the first benchmark, onboarding, the rule is pretty simple. A player needs to understand your entire core loop in 2 to 5 minutes. Not your whole game, just the loop and what am I doing, why am I doing it, what happens next. That's basically what they need to know. And if someone is still confused after 5 minutes, your onboarding is broken and no amount of good mechanics underneath is going to save you. So, for example, in Steal a Superstar, you spawn in, you immediately see NPCs walking around, you steal one, it starts generating cash, and you understand the entire loop before you've even finished your first minute. And then, the second part of this rule is just as important. Whatever the player's grinding toward next needs to be reachable in another 10 to 15 minutes. Not an hour and not a huge grind wall because that makes people leave, and it's gotta be close enough that they feel like they're making real progress fast. Now the second benchmark is playtime, and this one actually has 2 different thresholds depending on where you are in the process. While you're still running ads, before the algorithm has picked you up, you want average session time above 10 minutes. Below that, and most likely, you're just likely looking at a flop no matter what else is going on. And once you actually hit home recommendations, that number needs to jump. You want 20 plus minutes average once the algorithm starts pushing you. I ran ads on this game the same way that I run them on every game. I had the budget set and I let it go until either it flops or the home recommendations kick in. So I spent about $148 total before that happened here with this game. And anyway, the third benchmark, and this is honestly the one that most people either don't really check or they don't understand how to read it, and it's day 1 retention, meaning how many players come back the day after their first session. You ideally want this to be between 12 to 15%. D7, players coming back after a full week, 2 to 3% is considered good, and D30 or day 30 is trickier because there's no universal target, it's just naturally a small number, but the higher it is, the more that it tells you that your game has actual staying power and not just a first impression type of game. So, for example, with my game, Steal a Superstar, it sits at 12% D1 and 2% D7. Both of them are right at the edge of that healthy range, which honestly makes sense because if these numbers were way higher, then this game would probably be a lot bigger than 3K peak CCU, and if they were way lower, then it probably wouldn't have gotten off the ground at all. So, next up, we've got the fourth benchmark, which is monetization, and there's one principle that matters more than anything else here. Create a problem and sell the solution. You don't just hand players convenience for free. You need to build friction into the game somewhere, and then you sell the thing that removes that friction. So, look at the rebirth system in this game. Rebirth wipes your money and progress but unlocks permanent multipliers, extra floors, extra slots, faster speed, and that's an intentional problem that I put in there. You have to give something up to get stronger. And then on the shop side, there's slapper weapons at different price points. Crimson Slapper at 90 Robux, Violet Striker at 200, Aqua Slapper at 450, plus luck boosts for the rarity system. Every single one of those exists because there's a specific friction point that they're solving: slow progress, bad luck, and weak weapons. And honestly, the funniest one in this game is Nuke All. It's a developer product that just kills every single player on the server. It doesn't solve a problem exactly, it's just pure chaos, but it works because it gives players something fun and social to do with the Robux beyond just progression, which matters a lot more than people think. And the conversion numbers here, PCR at 2%, CVR at 2%, and QPTR at 3%. They all land right around that 2 to 3% target range, which is generally considered healthy for this kind of monetization setup. Now, for the fifth benchmark, and this is the one that almost nobody checks at all, which is your acquisition tab. Specifically, whether you're getting friend joins and search clicks, meaning are players finding your game because their friends are already in it, or because they searched something and your game showed up. If those numbers are basically flat, that's usually a sign that your game isn't creating any real word of mouth, which genuinely caps how far the algorithm will ever push you, no matter how good your other stats look. And the last thing, and this is honestly the part that decides absolutely everything for your game, the first 7 to 14 days after you publish your game are your make or break. This is not the point where you release the game and walk away. You need to be in the game itself, active pretty much 24/7 or as long as you possibly can. You need to be watching real players. You need to be fixing what's broken, because there will be things that are broken that you might not notice that other players will. You need to be adjusting monetization, all of it in that exact window. If you hit day 14 and the algorithm still has not picked up your game, that's pretty much your signal to seriously reconsider whether this specific game is worth continuing to push, though there are always exceptions where games pop later. For Steal a Superstar, that window was when the ad spend was doing its job, and once home recommendations started showing up in the data, that's when I knew that the game had actually made it through the hardest part. So that's the actual framework. I know I talked a lot, but I just want to give you guys as much of my intelligence and as much sauce as I possibly could. So the onboarding in 2 to 5 minutes, the playtime above 10 minutes when running ads, and then 20 minutes afterwards with home recommendations, day 1 or D1 and day 7 retention in range, the monetization built around solving real friction, and acquisition showing real word of mouth, and surviving that first 14-day window. Most games fail because they miss 2 or 3 of these without even realizing it. And if you hit enough of them, you don't need to hit all of them, but just enough. And if you hit enough of them, you're in that 10% that actually gets players. Anyway, that's pretty much it. But however, if you want to go much deeper into exactly how I set all of this up, including the monetization structure that I use personally, the ad strategy that I run personally, the whole thing pretty much, that's what Road Developer Academy is for. And I'm going to leave the link in the description. Make sure you check it out and join. You're going to find tons and tons of value in there and lots of free resources that are going to be in there that are going to be worth much more than what you're paying for. Just trust me on that. I can't speak too much of it on YouTube, but just join and you'll see what I'm talking about. And yeah, anyway, subscribe if you want to see the next breakdown for my next game or whatever, and I will be seeing you guys in the next one.